So here we are inside of QCT, and we're going to go into, and it's QCT Pro 6, and I have the latest version right here. I'm sorry if you have Plus or the edge-to-edge tier, you do have to have Pattern CAD to use Pattern CAD. You do have to have Pro to have Pattern CAD. So I'm going to open up Pattern CAD. And while I'm going to be talking about layers, I can't do it in isolation. So there's going to be, I'm going to introduce some other concepts as well, and I will circle back to them. The order that I want to talk about things is I'm going to talk about layers first, then I'm going to talk about drawing, then I'm going to talk about editing. I'm going to be talking about optimize, and it won't go to optimize unless I have something to optimize. And then I'm going to talk about using select and sew with pattern CAD to place some irregular patterns. So when you first open up pattern CAD, you see your screen here with the grid. And it looks like it's one layer, but it's really not. So if you were to start drawing on this, let me go to draw, and you're right here, anything that you can right now, see and edit. So if we're going to edit and select right here, anything that you can draw and that you can edit is on your top layer. Right now, my color is pink for my lines, and you're going to see that your lines, you can change the colors of them anytime you want. And let me just take care of some of that housekeeping and show you that before we continue. If you need to change the colors of things, and you probably will, you want to go to this button right here, Options, and anything that you see right here, Pattern CAD, you can change your line color, you can change what color your nodes are, you can change your handles, mirrors, trim, bottom, and your grid. And there would be a good reason to want to make these very contrasting. Is when you do by the defaults, let me do that. I'm going to say, okay, this is going to be gray. And if I send it, I'm going to now show you, I'm going to send this line to the bottom layer, layers, swap layers. It does turn blue, but it's not a very high contrasting color. So if you were to be tired or in a hurry, you might not be able to clearly see which layer you're dealing with. So I like to make mine very contrasting. So for what we're doing right now, I'm going to change my line color. I'm going to show you how to do that. This box, when you push on the lines, I'm going to pick something that's very bright. I'm going to say the pink, and then you want to say OK over here in this box. Then I'm going to say I want my bottom layer to be very different. I want to make it yellow. I'm going to say OK over here. You see it's changed over here. And the reason I want to point this out is because what you don't see here is that your template, you cannot change the color of your template. And unfortunately, the default color of your template is very close to the color of the bottom layer. And since we're going to be talking about those, you may want to change your colors so that you'll know clearly when you're using your top layer, your bottom layer, and your template. So with that changed, I'm going to say OK. And you'll see that it's changed. My bottom layer is now yellow, and I can bring it back up to the top, swap layers again. Now it's back up on the top, and it kept it gray. Anything new will be pink. So I'm going to close this off because really what we're going to be talking about is layers. And I just wanted to explain why my colors may look different than yours. So what I want to do now is I want to actually do something that is a task. I want to do something to show you how you would use your layers. A very common way to use your layers is if you wanted to make your own pattern from existing patterns. You would need to use your layers to do that. So I want to start off with a template. Let's say that we need to make a pattern that will fit inside a square. So I already have a template. Grace has one that is a square. So let me show you that first. We're going to pull up our template. You want to go to your toolbox. You want to say template right here. You're going to say load. And here they are. Anything that has a green line in it has a mirror in it. And that's something you will want to explore later when you've learned some of the basics. But we're going to choose one that doesn't have a mirror in it right now. And we're just going to say the block. We're going to open this up. So right now you'll see that it's blue, and that's the color of the template. And there is nothing I can do except for I can zoom in and I can zoom out. That is all I can do with this with a template. I can't edit it. I can't rotate it. I can't do any of the editing features. I can't crop it. There's nothing else I can do to it. It is just a reference layer. Likewise, I can't stitch it out either. So I can't save it any other way and I can't stitch it. This is just for me to be able to see. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to bring in my first pattern. So I'm going to select, you could draw if you wanted to, but I'm going to join patterns. That's the easiest way to show you about the layers, which is the focus of this section of the video. So I'm going to select, I'm going to go to my patterns and I'm going to select this butterfly right here. So it's too big for our box. The first thing that I'm going to want to do is I want to go to optimize. So now that there's actually something on our screen, when I hit the optimize button, we'll actually go into the optimize function. Here we go. So what I can see from optimize is that I have one continuous line because we only have one red circle with a yellow circle with the number one in it. I can also see where my stop and my start are, which is often the case with blocks. The stop and the start are right up on top of each other and they're not on the outside. I've noticed a lot of the grace blocks like to start in the center, towards the center of a design. And that's very common for blocks of any kind. And it's just good to know in advance before you start doing anything where those stops and starts are and that everything before you get going is in one continuous line. So now that I have that knowledge, I'm going to say, okay, and I want to size this. So that's the next thing I want to do. I'm not going to draw anything. I'm just going to size something. So I'm going to need to go to edit. I've clicked on edit. And the next thing I'm going to hit is select. And I'm going to use one of these functions right here. I'm going to say select all. So now you can see that the hollow circles, those nodes became solid. That's how I know that it's selected. Well, what you can also see is that I can tell by looking at this drawing that drawing was made by using the nodes off feature because they have all these handles on them, which means I could just shape these lines if I wanted to. I'm going to say undo so I haven't changed anything. But that's just to let you know what you're seeing on the screen. But what I really want to do now is to back up, I said edit, said select and select all. And with all of my nodes selected, I need to pick an action. I need to say that I want to size. You're going to see that when I select size, that this menu is going to change. So there we go. So now I have the functions that go along with size. One of them is the ratio lock right here. And because I just want to make this smaller, I don't want to just make it smaller in one direction or the other. I want to make the whole thing smaller. I want to lock the ratio lock. The next thing I want to bring your attention to is this button right here called your step button. And this has tiny, small, medium, large, and jumbo. And what this does is it controls how much any single setting button is going to change that pattern. Tiny is very tiny. If I were to try to use, you can see how small it's going. That's just going to take too long. So I want to increase my step to probably medium, and now I'm just going to make it smaller. That's probably good. And now I am going to use the size function to the move. I'm going to change from the size function to the move function. So I've already have everything is still selected. You just got to make sure that when you're going between these functions that everything that you want to move now is selected and it is. So when I click on the move button, this is going to change again. So when I hit this function, all of the buttons that are related to it are going to change. And here they are. These are the arrows. And so I could move this up and over in different ways. So let me just show you with the medium step on, it would move about that much with a single click. But you can also use the drag feature when everything is selected. And so I'm going to move it by using the drag feature. I'm just going to kind of move it to over here. You can see now that with all of these nodes showing that it's kind of hard to see our pattern. So first I'm going to zoom in, but I want to tell you about this feature right here, your nodes button. And this can be confusing because when people will say, well, turn your nodes off. Well, really what you're doing is you're not turning them off, and there's not related to the draw when you say nodes on or off. What you're referring to is whether you're disappearing them or not, whether you can actually see your nodes or not. So I'm going to turn the nodes off so that we can see our design better, but they are still there. When I click them on, they never go away. My nodes are always going to be there. I'm just not going to be able to see them. So I'm going to make it easier to see my actual design and work with this pattern by making them invisible, but they are in fact still there. And I can select them whether I can see them or not. So now I've selected edit and select all. So even though I can't see those nodes, if I turn them on now, you can see that they are selected. So be very careful when you have your nodes on or off to visible or invisible is a better way to put it. Because if you select something and you can't see if your nodes are selected, we'll have some things that might change on you that you're not expecting if you can't see which nodes are selected. So right now I have them all selected and I can kind of move it maybe a little bit closer to where I want it to be fuller into that box, just like that. But now I'm going to turn the nodes off and I'm also going to unselect everything. So, all right, I have my butterfly that is in the box now. But if I want to bring in another pattern, watch what happens. I'm going to say select pattern, but it's going to say you will lose your current work unless you save it. Do you want to continue? Well, I don't want to lose my work right now, so I'm going to say no. What this means is that you can only design with one pattern at a time in Pattern CAD. You have to use the layers in order to bring another pattern in. So what needs to happen, notice that this is pink right now, is I need to bring this to the bottom layer so that I can then bring a new pattern to the top layer. So what I need to do is swap layers. So this layer isn't going to go away. I'm just going to swap it. Right now, I have something on the template layer and I have something on my active layer, but there's nothing in the inactive layer. And while you can't see it, it is still there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap those two layers. I'm going to go to the layers right here. I'm going to say swap. Well, now we can see that that's yellow. Well, I want to change that because I'm not liking right now that it's yellow because that's a little bit too light for me. So let's go to options and we're going to go to my bottom layer. And I think maybe what I want to do is maybe make it maroon. And I'm going to say, okay, right here. And I'll say, okay. And now this is changed to a different color, to the maroon color. So this is again on my inactive layer and I want to pull in a new pattern. So now with this at the inactive layer and me being able to see it, I'm going to say select patterns and notice now the menu, now I'm able to do that. I didn't get that same error message. So I want to select the B. I'm going to say open. And here's my B, and it's come in very large, as we can see. Let me move my screen a little bit. You can move around on your screen by using the arrows. Often, if you've used Word or Windows, you would be very familiar with the arrows that can pan through your screen a little bit. So I want to go to optimize right away. Okay, great. I can see it is in one line and that my stop and my start points are not on the outside anyplace. They're right up on top of each other right here in interior of the pattern. And that's very good information to know. So just like with the other pattern, I want to size it. So I'm going to, this is what I do. You don't have to do it this way. I'm going to leave the nodes invisible. But what I want to do first is I want to make sure I'm in edit. I've tapped that. Select. I've tapped that. I want to unselect all so that I know everything is unselected first. And then I'm going to say select all. So now all of my nodes are selected so that when I go to size something, everything, all of my nodes are selected and nothing is unexpectedly not selected or not unselected. So I'm going to say size. My step is left at medium. My ratio lock is on, and I'm going to size this pattern. Okay. And just as before, I can, with everything selected, I can move it by dragging it. So I'm going to move my B to about right here. And I think maybe I need to make them a little bit bigger. So I'll go back to the size. And again, I'm going to say select. I'll say unselect all and then select all just to be sure that something didn't get unselected when I moved it and everything is now selected. So I'm going to say size and the ratio lock is still on and I may increase them up just a little bit to help fill up this space. I'm going to leave it like that. So let's go back to optimize and make sure everything stayed where it was, and it is. Notice that our stop and start point is right here. So although we're talking about layers, we're going to need to join these now. And notice again, we have three layers. Let's talk about our three layers because that's the topic. We have a template. We have an inactive layer or the bottom layer where the butterfly is at, and we have our active layer. So if I were to save this right now, It is not going to save the template. It is not going to save the butterfly. It would only save the active layer. And it's the same thing with optimize. When I go to optimize, it is only going to show me what is on the active layer, not anything about that template and not anything about the inactive layer. So that's important to remember, is that when you're doing these things, uh, that is what how Pattern CAD behaves. Is that if I were to save something, it's only going to save the active layer, and optimize is only going to show me the active layer or the top layer, and all of the edit functions will only act on the active layer or the top layer. It won't act on any of the other layers. So now let's talk about what I want to do. I am going to have to use the draw functions to do this. But in order to make a pantograph, I need to join these two. So let's do that first. So I'm going to go to the draw functions. I'm going to say draw. Let me pause for a second because we've got a window problem here. Let me move this. So I got my windows back so that I can show you what we're working on. So again, we have a stop and a start point that's right here. And again, this is about our layers, but I want to show you how you use these layers. So I'm going to try and make this pantograph. And in order to do that, I need to join the butterfly and the bee first. So my stop point and my start point are right here. I want to go to draw, and I want to bring your attention to this box right here, continuous line. When continuous line is checked, it means that when you draw, the next line, whatever you're going to draw, is going to be joined to or from the stop point. So I want to demonstrate that. If I have this unchecked and I draw a line just like this, if I put my notes back on, it has its own start and stop point right here, and it will also be an optimize. You'll be able to see that these are both on the active layer, and this has its own stop and start point, and this has its own stop and start point. I'm going to say okay, and I'm going to say this is undo right here. This is the undo button. I'm going to undo that. There we go. Did it twice. I don't know why it had the scatter screen, but there we go. There's undo. And we're back to where we were. And I want to remove my nodes right there so we can see RB. And I'm going to now put the continuous line button on. I also want to change the way that I'm going to draw because I don't want to draw with the nodes on. This can be confusing because we talked about this nodes right here. This is making your nodes visible and invisible, and this is a way of drawing. And we often refer to them as with your nodes on and with your nodes off. But really what it is whether you're drawing with evenly spaced nodes where QCT decides the length of your line segments and when you don't. And so I'm going to turn this off. Oftentimes when you're using with the nodes on, you don't draw with these types of lines, and with the nodes off or unevenly spaced, you use these to draw. And we're going to talk about that more later. But right now I just want to draw. I'm going to pick draw. I want to use a spline. And what I'm trying to do is to join the butterfly and the bee together. And when I now draw with continuous line, the next line that you're going to see is going to come from the stop point and to where I want it to be. So I think for the sake of, let's just go in this direction. So I think I want it to come out away from the bee first. So I'm going to bring my pointer to where I want that line to end, and I'm going to tap the button. And as you see, that line appeared. I'm going to go ahead and turn my nodes back on so we can see them. And now I want to shape this line because I'm using the nodes off. I will need to shape it. And remember, I used a spline. So now I want to go to Edit, and I'm going to first select. I need to select. So when you go to Edit, you say Edit, and you're going to select. You need to show QCT. Well, what do you want to edit? So I am going to select first this node, and I'm going to zoom in so that I can select the other node. So I'm going to zoom in, and now I'm going to left click and drag. There we go. And it selected more than what I wanted. That's okay. So long as I can get to these two handles now that pop up. These are handles that will now allow me to make this into a spline. And I'm just going to shape this line. We'll talk more about this when we get to the drawing, but I just want to shape this line a little bit. Okay, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to unselect all and let's zoom back out. I'm going to turn the nodes so that they're invisible so we can see what we have going here. All right, so now I have my B and I have a line that's starting to go towards the butterfly. And let's go back to optimize and see what's happened. Well, we can see that now we don't have a continuous line, but we also don't have a jump stitch. What we have right here is a break in the pattern. And I can fix this two different ways. I can fix this so long as there isn't a jump stitch. A jump stitch would have a blue dot and a line attached with it. I only have a break. It means that when I drew this line, it didn't automatically attach to the other point that's right here. And so I want to change that. Again, there are two ways to do that. I can take care of it in here, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'll show you another way to do it um, when we encounter this same problem again. So because I don't have a jump stitch, I'm just going to say right here, I'm going to say remove all. Now you can see it joined that line. So I can see that I have a stop point right here and a start point right here. Well, let me go back and point something out to you. So yes, we want to join the butterfly to the bee. And once they're joined, we're also going to need a tail on both of these so that we can join this in to make it a pantograph. And so before I get to the butterfly, I think I want to start that line so that we can join the, once this becomes one pattern, there'll be a way to join it into a pantograph. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to manipulate the optimize feature in order to do that. Because remember, right now, my stop point is right here. So if I try to draw another line, it's with continuous line selected, it's going to come from this line. And I don't want to start from here. I really want to draw a line from here out. And I can do that by just saying, now I'm going to say reverse all. Now I can say reverse all because I only have one line segment. So if I were to tap reverse all and I had more than one line, they would all reverse. So the other way to do that, now again, I could do that because I only have one line right here. But the other way to do that is just to tap on any part of the line itself in Optimize and it will reverse. So that's what I'm going to show you right now. So there's my stop and here's my start. I'm going to click on the line. That's all I did was tap on the line and now you can see it is reversed. So now I can draw a line out from the butterfly in this direction. I'm going to say okay. And now notice I'm still in edit. So if I tried to draw something, I wouldn't be able to. I need to go back into the draw. So I'm going to click on draw right here. And I want a spline again, but if I wanted to change my line type, I could. But I want spline and continuous line is selected. So now I can just kind of put my arrow, my pointer where I want that line to go. And I'm going to tap on it. There we go. So now that line was created. I'm going to turn my nodes on again. I'm going to say edit. I'm going to select, I'm going to left click to drag that box to select that node. And I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to left click again. And again, I'll probably select more than what I need. That's okay. I just need to get to these handles. And I might need to zoom in a little bit more for this. So here's my line right here. And I want to shape it a little bit. So here we go. Let's just kind of shape it. All right. I think I'm happy with that. So I'm going to zoom back out, zoom back out. Let's go back to optimize and see what we've done. Okay, so once again, we have two line segments and they're right on top of each other again. And so let me show you another way that we can snap all these together. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to leave it as it is. So in order to do that, I'm going to really need to zoom in again. There we go. And let's scroll a little bit. So now I'm going to go over here. I'm going to say unselect all. So what has happened is that this line segment right here, that's the line that's on the outside, has not completely joined to the point, the end point, what was the end point. And so I'm going to select that area right there and see if I can unselect these. Zoom in a little bit more if it will let me, and it won't. So I'm going to unselect, see if I can just select this one. There it goes. So there were two circles that were right on top of each other right there, and I'm going to, but they weren't attached. So I'm going to make them into one dot, one continuous, like just one dot. So I'm going to say snap selected. There we go. Now let's go to optimize and see if that worked. It didn't, so that's okay. I tried to do it that way. I will show you that function again. Again, I'm not going to edit this. We're in real time. Sometimes things work and sometimes they don't, and there's more than one way to accomplish something. So I'll just do it this way, and because it doesn't have a jump stitch. It's just 2 points that didn't want to connect. I'm going to say remove all, and now you see it did join itself. So I have a start right here, and I have a stop right here, which is perfect because when we're drawing a pantograph in QCT wants to start on the left. So it's going to actually go to our butterfly first, and then it's going to come from our butterfly and it's going to come down to this. It'll start then from right here and finish out, and then our stop is right here. And I'm going to say, okay. So let's select on, and we're going to zoom on back out, zoom out, zoom out. Okay, so we have 3 layers here. Because this is about our layers, let me get back to that topic again, and let me show you what we have. So we have our template, we have our inactive layer that is the butterfly, and we have our active layer. So I cannot do anything with a template, I cannot do anything with a butterfly, but I can only work with active layer, which invisible nodes, there we go. Now we have our B that is now a continuous line. It's one line with a start there and a stop there. I'm going to say okay. So now I want to start working with the butterfly, and I could have 2 options. I could use the merge feature and merge them together right now, but I don't really want to do that because I have the bee kind of like I want it, but I don't have the same 2 tails going with my butterfly. And for me, my preference would be to now swap layers again. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say layers. I'm going to swap the layers so that I can leave the bee as it is. Again, the template didn't anything happen with the template. And now I'm at my butterfly and I can start manipulating the butterfly before I try and add everything together. So let's go back to optimize just to make sure everything's like we want it to be. And it is. Our stop and our start points are right here. And it's all one continuous line. I'm going to say okay. So now I want to, again, start working towards having a tail on the outside of the butterfly that goes out to join the pantographs together, but also a tail or a line that joins these 2 patterns together. So I'm going to go to draw, and we know that the stop point is right here. So let's go towards the B first. I'm going to say draw. I'm going to use spline. I'm also going to zoom in a bit so I can see this pattern a little bit better. And I'm just going to bring my cursor, my arrow, my pointer, whatever you want to call it, to where I want that line to go, and I'm going to tap. So there's my line. I'm going to turn my nodes back on. And now this pattern did not have anywhere near the same number of nodes that this pattern had. I want to bring to your attention that when you see a pattern that was like this, it was either flattened, that had all those nodes, all kinds of nodes in it. It was either drawn with the nodes on method or it was flattened. And a flattened pattern is where QCT, you can do that in this file feature right here. You'll see flattened pattern. And you would just select everything and say flatten pattern. QCT, oops, undo that. QCT will add a whole bunch of nodes to your pattern to make it smoother and so that you can use some of the uh, edit features. Some of the edit feature, the more complicated edit features will not work unless you have a lot of nodes. And so if you've used this method, clearly here they used the nodes off method to draw the butterfly. There would be some of the edit features that you wouldn't be able to use. So if you then flattened that pattern, then you would be able to use those features. However, be careful when you do this because this pattern is far easier to edit because it doesn't have as many nodes than this pattern is. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Okay, so anyway, so back to what I was doing. I'm going to now select, oops, I was in draw, that's why I couldn't work with select. So I need to undo that line and I need to go to edit. And again, you have to go back and forth between draw and edit. QCT does not know what you're doing. So in edit and select, I'm going to left click and draw that box around this one. I'm going to scroll in. I'm going to left click on this one. And because these two are now selected, the same line, the endpoints are selected, I can edit this line, and that's why the shaping handles have appeared. So now I can shape this line. I'm just going to left click on the box and pull up on it. And let's scroll out a little bit or zoom out a little bit towards this one. And I'm thinking, let's unselect all. I might need to direct that line a little bit. So if I had both of the lines selected, I might actually move the line. And I don't want to do that. What I'm going to try and do now is just kind of get this line pointed in the right direction. So I only want to select just that node. And I'm going to kind of pull on it to get it in the down direction. So now I know that I have a start point right here, which is what I want. And let's go to optimize and see what we're working with. So as we saw before, it did not want to join these 2 points. And so let's see if I can get snap to work in this one. There may be so many together that I can't use it, but let me see if I can get it to work this time. So let me zoom in and I'm going to unselect everything. And if you can see really clearly, maybe you can't because it would be hard to see it. These two dots right here where I started to draw this line right up here, these two dots are not completely on top of each other. And so in order to get them to join together, I'm going to select that right there. So I've left clicked and put the box around it. And while it still might look like there's only one circle there, there really are two. And they're not completely on top of each other. And I'm going to go to this feature right here, snap selected. There we go. And now I can see there really is only one circle there. So when I go to optimize, I'm hopeful, yes, it did. It joined those 2 points together, and now I have one continuous line. My start, my start node is right here, and my stop point is right here. But remember, I need to now draw another tail going out in this direction to successfully make a pantograph. So in order to do that, I want to manipulate this function right now. I want to reverse my line so that my stop point is right here. So I'm going to say reverse all, or I could just tap on the line. When you have one line, you can do that. So I want my stop to be right here so that when I draw with continuous line selected, let's zoom out, it will come from this node. So I just want to kind of get it clear of the butterfly body first. So I'm just going to bring my arrow about to here and tap. And now I'm going to do a new skill. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to touch nodes. I'm not going to touch anything except for I drew the line and I immediately touched the space bar. This is why it's important to have a keyboard. So all I did was I drew the line and then without doing any other thing, nothing in between like I did in the other um, sections, like I did previously, I tapped the space bar. When you will do that, it will automatically select the last line that you drew so that you can shape it without having to go into the edit functions. So this is the only time it will automatically go into edit and then select the last line that you drew so that you can shape it. This is very helpful when you're in the nodes off drawing mode, and you're going to see this more when we go to the section on drawing. So now I've shaped this line and I have another line going out. So let's go to optimize. And once again, it wanted to not join that line, and I'm just going to say remove, and it's going to remove it for me. But you know that we could have zoomed in and snapped them together that other way, but this is just the easier method. But we have our stop point right here and a start point right here. We need to reverse those because our pantograph goes from left to right. So we need the start point to be back over here. So I'll just say reverse all, or I could have tapped on it. And now I have my start point going from here to here, and I have one continuous line. So if I were to save my butterfly, which I should have told you to do with the bee as well, you could save it so it's like this, but you will save only the butterfly because your template is not part of the active layer and your bee is still part of the inactive layer. So it's not going to save them together. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to merge these two because now we want to start joining things together. And so in order to do that, I want to just unselect all first, although I could merge it even with them selected. I'm going to say layers and I'm going to say merge the bottom to the top. And I'm going to be careful when I do this because if you say merge the top to the bottom, sometimes you will end up with an unexpected copy. So I want to do bottom to the top. I want to bring the B up to the top, merge top to bottom. There we go. So now when I go to optimize, watch what happens. So now I can see both of the patterns because they're both on the top layer in the active layer. So let's look and see what's going on here. We can see that this is one continuous line and this is one continuous line, but they're not in the order that we would like them to be in. It wants to stitch the bee first, and then it wants to be the butterfly. And I can tell that because this yellow circle says 1 and this yellow circle says 2. And I want to swap them. So I'm going to go down to this right here where it says show. And I want to show you something right here. If I unclick this, and because this says 1, it will show me just the number 1 order line segment. And then if I go on 2, everything here will be unselected. Every other line, if there were more lines, would be unselected, and it will show you where the second line is and where its stop and start and where it's going to join is. So that's very helpful information when you're working with a whole bunch of designs, and particularly if you maybe have purchased a pattern where you can't introduce one item at a time and you open things up and you might need to fix something and you have a mess going on. This is very, very helpful to know just where the second line is, just where the stop and starts are, and where it wants to join to so you can fix them. So that's what we're seeing right here. So I'm going to click this back again. Everything's there. And I want to make this number 1. And so I'm going to change this box to 1. And when I click on this button right here, it will change. So what that's saying now, this is the first order. This is the first continuous line. This is the second continuous line. And we can see that there wants to be a jump stitch right here. So let's fix that. And again, my start point is right here and my stop point is right here. So I'm going to say OK. So now I'm going to say draw, but let's go back to optimize. So right now it's saying this is my start point and that's a stop point. And then this is the second line. So it's going to start right here and it's going to go to stop. But because QCT, the way the draw function will work, it will not draw a line in continuous line from this stop point. It will only want to draw a stop point from this continuous line. So I'm going to introduce a new skill to us where we need to then not use a continuous line to draw from this point right here. So I'm going to say OK, because while this is a start and a stop, if I were to try and draw a line now with continuous line selected, it wants to draw from this endpoint. And how we know that is because this endpoint is not circled like that. So here's where the start is and here's where the stop is. If I use continuous line, it would come from this line. So now what I want to do is I'm going to uncheck continuous line and I'm going to go to draw, and I still want to use spline, and I'm going to draw a line from this one to this one. So I'm just going to left click from right here to right here. And now I have a line segment. I'm going to tap my space bar and that selects the line, and that will allow me to kind of give this a shape. We'll give it a shape right here. But now I'm going to talk about those snap features again. So I'm going to say unselect all, and you can see that those are not joined, that it really is still its own line segment. And if you go to optimize, you'll be able to see that. It wants to stitch this out, then it wants to stitch this out, and then it wants to stitch this one third, and they're not joined together. So let's see if we can fix that ahead of optimize, or if we're going to use optimize or not. So how I can get these two lines to join together is by that snap feature that we've talked about. So let me zoom in a little bit so you can see. Those two circles, those endpoints are not on top of each other. So I'm going to left click and drag. They're both selected, and I'm going to say snap selected. So now you can see it's only one line segment. That's super. That's awesome. So let me go to unselect to make sure there's nothing selected I can't see. I'm going to do the same thing right here. Okay, so now they're selected. I'm going to say snap selected. And that's indeed what it's done. And it has moved my endpoint. So notice that it moved the endpoint. So we're probably going to have to still use optimize, and that's fine. So we're going to say zoom out. We're going to go to optimize. And we're still seeing that it wants to do it in 3 different sections. So we're going to have to optimize. We're going to change our line order. So let's go to 1. I'm going to unclick this so I can see where everything's at. So here's my line 1. I have a start and a stop. That's good. Show me where 2 is. Okay, well, it still wants this to be 2, and I don't want that. I want it to be third. But it does have a start right here and a stop right here. That's great. That's where it needs to be. Let's go to 3. Okay, so 3 is right here and it has a start right here and a stop right here. That's where they need to be. So we're just going to change it. Let's put them all back together again. I'm going to bring this back to 1. I'll click on it. It was already 1, but I'll click on it. And so that makes this in the box go to 2. And so I'm going to click on this one to make it 2. There we go. And that's all I needed to do. Once I did that, QCT automatically made it into its own single line pattern. It joined everything else for me. So I'm going to say OK. All right. So now let's take a look at a new feature that I want to show you about, preview. You're going to use this an awful lot when you want to make a pantograph or if you want to find out if something is continuous. So let's click on it and see what it does. Okay, so what it is showing us is that we have our design, and it will, again, will not show you the template and it will not show you the inactive layer. It's only going to show you what your continuous line, what your active layer or your top layer will look like as a pantograph, and it will tell you if it's continuous or not, and it's not. So what we can see is that our stop and our start points are not going to be quite connecting. So what it's doing, this is our pattern right here. So the start point of this pattern, when it copies this pattern to make the pantograph, the start point and the stop points aren't quite lining up. So we're going to fix that. So let's go to OK. And there's a way to do that. There's more than one way to do it. The way that I'm going to show you is by this function right here called snap ends. So what I want to do to use this function is I'm going to select this endpoint. I'm going to select this endpoint. And then I'm going to say snap ends. This message appears, and what it says is it appears this design is intended to have separate endpoints. Do you wish only to snap the vertical components of the points? You say yes if you do, and we do, because what we're trying to do is bring the vertical. When it's talking about vertical, it's talking about in the up and down direction. And the only way that this is going to join together as a pantograph is if those stop and start points are at exactly the same height. So that is, in fact, what we want to do, but let's finish reading the message. Or do you wish to snap the endpoints together? And then you would say continue. Well, that is when you want your endpoints to be like they were originally, where they're right up on top of each other before we started editing the butterfly, before we started editing the bee. That's when you want your endpoints to be right up on top of each other so that they're in the same location. And we don't want that. So we don't want to select continue. We're going to say yes. And so now it has moved our endpoints so that they are at the same height. So now when we click on preview, there we go. Now it says it's continuous, and it will show us what our design is going to look like as a pantograph. So it may be that you want to change the location and make the endpoints a little bit smoother. And there is a way to do that. I want to point it out to you, but we're not going to use it in this video because it uses videos. I mean, it uses mirrors, and that is another complication that while you absolutely can learn it, we're not going to use that in this video. So I'm just going to show you where it is. You could go to tools and you could say endpoint continuity and click on it, and it will show you, it will use mirrors, a mirror feature, to show you a pattern that is behind it and a pattern that's in front of it. And then you can manipulate these two things, but we're not going to use it today. I just wanted to show you where it is. So I'm going to get rid of it. So we're going to go to clear, and I'm going to say your mirrors. All right, so we're back to where we were. All right, so this is where you would want to save this, your pantograph. And you want to save it not as butterfly or not as bee, but rename it, and you want to save it. And that is how you would have a pantograph. And again, we have now still 3 layers. We have a template. We have our active layer that both layers are on, but we just don't have anything in the inactive layer, but it is always there. But there's one layer that we have not talked about yet, and that is the background layer, and I want to introduce that to you. So I'm going to clear everything to show you the background layer. So when I go on the X out feature, it will take everything that's in the active layer out, and I would have to bring up the inactive layer to clear it, or I could go to the toolbox and say clear, and you could say all, and now everything is gone. So now what I want to do is show you your background layer. So your background layer is not something that QCT has already designed for you. Background layer is often either a picture of something you want to trace or a sketch that you've drawn. And this is how you do that. You click on background and you're going to say load image. Now mine is going to go automatically to the last place that I used an image, and I was using a Dresden plate. That's what I last used. But you may want to find a location on your laptop and make your own file, and always put your pictures into that file so that anytime you open up your QCT and go to load image, it would automatically go back to that file, and you wouldn't have to keep browsing for it. But here you'll see things that I just last worked on inside of this folder right here. One of them was a sketch and one of them is a block. So let me show you how I used each of these. So I'm going to pull in a block. This is a picture that I already made of my block. And then I imported it onto my laptop, and it came in very large. So I'm just now scrolling out. And I'm only zooming out or scrolling out, however you want to say it, because that is the only thing I can do with this picture. I cannot do any other thing. I can't crop it. I can't rotate it. I can't edit the background in any way. The only thing that I can do is draw on it. Some things that you might want to do with your block is you could then maybe decide what kind of pattern. You could maybe audition some patterns to go into it. So let's do that. I'm going to say select pattern, and I'm going to go to let's use this one. Let's see what a petal would look like inside of this. So I see the petal. Here it is. So I cannot do anything with I cannot resize the pattern without resizing the picture too. You see how they're going to go together? So in order to see what this would look like, I can't do anything to the background. I can only do something to the pattern. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to say edit, select all. So now everything is selected, and I'm going to size it a little bit, and I'm going to make my nodes invisible so I can see that pattern better. So now it's invisible, and let's just see if it will let me drag it, and it will. So let's see what this looks like in this block. So I could size this. Everything is selected, remember? So I'm going to just size it. Okay, so that fills it in a little bit bigger. But let's say I want to compare it to another pattern. I can still use all of my layers. So I can't directly bring another pattern in. I have to swap this one to the bottom layer first. So let's do that. I'm going to go to layers. I'm going to say swap layers. So this would be a time where I might want to change the color of that bottom layer, but let's just leave it for now. I'm going to say, let's select another pattern. Let's say maybe I want to see what this one looks like. So we'll open this one up, and here it is. It's nice and bright and pink, but I would want to see what does it look like inside of there. So again, I can't do anything with the background layer. I can only move the pattern and edit the pattern. So let's select all, and let's move it. And there you go. This is a good, I'm glad it did this. It didn't want to move the whole thing. And so instead of dragging, it actually reshaped my pattern. So I'm just going to say undo. That's all I needed to do. And I'm going to say select all again, and I'll just go to move, because sometimes the drag feature, it just doesn't want to work. And let's increase my step to large. And I can just use the arrows to move this to see what will it look like inside of my block. There we go. So this is just one way that you can audition some things by bringing in a background. But you could also use it if you wanted to draw something too. So let me show you that. I'm going to clear the pattern. And when you clear the pattern, you could even use the toolbox and say clear all. It's not going to clear your background. The only way to clear your background is go to background and say clear. That's the only way to do it. So I clicked on background, and the clear button is right there. And then I would have to bring my grid back just like that. So let's scroll in a little bit back to normal. And so now I'm going to pick another picture. Let's go to background, and I'll say load image. And here was a sketch of something that I was using with my Dresden plate. And it's rather large, so I would want to scroll out. But now I could draw on top of this. If I was going to draw, there are a lot of different ways I could draw, and we're going to be talking about that next. And so we're going to see this one again, but you could draw on top of this. But what's important to know is once you draw on it, this image is not going to save. So if you go to optimize, it's not part of optimize, cancel. If you were to go to save, your image is not part of the save. It's only your drawing that's going to save. And again, if you were to use your layers, it's only the active layer that's going to save. So you cannot save a drawing on top of your image. That's important to know. So that is what we're talking about in terms of with your layers. And the next section of this video is going to be about drawing with your nodes on and with your nodes off. But I want to just review a little bit about our what we've done with the PowerPoint slide. So let's go to PowerPoint. Um, I'll bring it up. So here's our slide of our layers, and I just want to review just a little bit that you can have a total of 4 layers, but you can only work with 2 at a time, but you can see all of them at the same time. So you're going to often go back between the active layer and the inactive layer, or your top and your bottom layer, and you're going to only be able to draw and edit on the top layer. Although you're going to be able to see your reference layers at the same time, you cannot change any of these. You can't sew any of them out. You can't edit these in any way. You can with your bottom layer because you can swap back and forth between the 2 of them, and then you can merge them together as well. And now none of these layers are going to either not be there. They're just either going to be empty or nothing will be in them, any way you want to think about it. They're still going to be there. They just might not have anything in them. But all 4 of them are always going to be there. So I hope that is helpful for you with your layers, and we're going to move on to the drawing.